Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And several holiday cards using a mix and match of oldie but goodie favorites and new things, but also a mix and match of several things that I've used recently. Mix and match. So, just other ways to use them. So, as always, I will have a link in the end screen to my holiday 2025 playlist. Dozens of videos in there so far. More will be coming. And then in the description box below the video, I will have links to all the supplies I used. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. That's what helps. Pays the bills, keeps the lights on, enables me to keep bringing out content. And yeah, let's get into making the cards. So this is going to be multiple ways to add texture without adding a lot of bulk or layers, really, because all of this is done on one layer of cardstock for the most part, and then stuck to a card base. And the white cardstock, I cut down a full 8.5 by 11 sheet. Cut it in half, cut them in half again. So I've got 4 A2 size panels here. And I'm using my anti-static powder tool on them to prevent the embossing powder from clinging to where it doesn't belong. I still managed to get like a fingerprint and embossed it. I don't really care. It's all about texture, and it doesn't need to be perfect. So after using the anti-static powder tool, I'm stamping the white Christmas text background, which I've used in many, many videos. And I predicted in the first video I used it in, that I'd be using it a lot. And I did, because you can't go wrong with just a good text background. Backgrounds that are like small, like little dots, etc. They work with everything. So, stamped it with clear embossing ink, and then pouring on Simon's white embossing powder, tapping off the excess, and then setting this aside, because I'm going to do all 4 panels just back to back. And you can set things aside when you've added like sticky ink and embossing powder, but don't like set it overnight, sort of a thing. You need to melt it. The ink will dry. It is a slow drying sticky ink, but I wouldn't leave anything overnight or even for like an extended period of time, because that ink will start to dry, and then if you go to try and heat emboss it, the powder is just going to blow everywhere. But in like, kind of mass producing sessions, things like this, I can do several at once. I just set them somewhere where I can't knock them over with my elbow. That's always very important. And then get the embossing powder on, repeat. So then I've got 4 panels, and then I can melt them all back to back with my heat tool. So put the lid on the embossing powder so I don't knock that over either. Been there, done that. And then melt with my heat tool. And usually it's very difficult for me to show, especially white on white like this. But today, when I was filming this one, look at that. You can see it. And this is what I talk about when I say I heat it till it's shiny, like smooth and melted, and then you look for dull green areas. Right there. You can see what is melted, and the dull greeny area there on the left isn't. That's what you're looking for. And usually it's not so obvious, like half and half like I showed, but it'll be like almost all of it is melted and you just missed a spot. That's why I say, like, I tilt my cardstock in the light. That especially comes into play with things like this, where it's white embossing powder on white cardstock or clear embossing powder. Pretty much anything on white cardstock, So, after I embossed, I then ran these through my die cut machine with the Snowflake Burst Pinpoint plate. Love this plate. Love it so much. Used it in what will most likely be my previous video. I'm like editing up batches of stuff and all the things. The only thing I would do differently, I would do the stenciling first and then use the wafer die, because this wafer die and any one that's similar that does like a full pattern that pierces the detail, the back of the cardstock is all pokey, from all that piercing detail, and it doesn't want to like hold down to anything. Not the end of the world. But this is why I would stencil first and then do the wafer die. Or if you have the sticky mats that are meant for like blending and stamp, which I have a stack of them. I use them for like watercoloring and sticking my watercolor die cuts to. And I didn't think of that till now, till doing my editing and my voiceover, that it's like you could have just pulled out one of the sticky mats that's literally a foot away from said elbow. Anyway, either one works. You could stick it to a little sticky mat. You could do the like the piercing plate after the stenciling. This still worked. I just had to pay a little closer attention. I used a little low-tack tape, rolled over there to kind of hold them more to my grip mat. It sort of worked. If this was a more finicky stencil or, more detailed, then I would have probably remembered the sticky mat. Yeah. Just all the things to note for if you want to do something similar. Anyway, I'm using the, is it just called large snowflake? I think that's what it's called. Yeah, large snowflake cutouts. It's a 2 stencil set. There's 2 different stencils, and I did a live stream using these in a very much more clean and simple way. And I really love this stencil set. I only use the one stencil, and I just use it on all 4 like card fronts. And I'm blending 3 different shades of Simon's Pawsitively saturated ink. I went with Surf, Clematis, and was that Sweets? Yes, Sweets inks. So with these 2, I started with the Surf in the center. I just blended it on with my blending brush. Then I'm going in with the Clematis, and you can see I'm not swirling the brush like we normally do, like the circular motions, because most of that snowflake is not connected to anything. You can either use like some pixie spray on the back of it if it really bothers you, or as you can see, I was just holding it with my fingers. I wasn't too worried about it. Again, this one isn't so super delicate that I'm worried about it. It doesn't need to be perfect. These inks smooth out and dry back. So if I manage to get even more fingerprints on it, and I'm going to add splatter. This is why splatter was so wonderful. So blended it around, blended the sweets around that. And then ink will sit on top of all that white heat embossing. So I buffed that off with a cloth. And then we've got this background that has all of this texture while still basically being flat. Because we've got the white heat embossing of that background stamp, the piercing detail from the pinpoint plate, and then the layer of snowflake detail from the stencil. It's so fun. It's just fun. So I repeated the process on the second card front, doing the exact same thing. Surf, then Clematis, then Sweets, and then wiped away any of the ink sitting on top of the embossing powder. And then I did the exact same thing with the other 2 card panels using the exact same colors, but I just went in the opposite order, which I talk about this a lot. It's like, oh, just change up your ink colors and you get a different look. It's, simple ways to use the same things but get different looks of them. Well, this, I used literally the same things and just reversed the order. And the backgrounds right there, how different they look. And yet, same things, except with the other 2, I just did the sweets in the middle, then the clematis, and then the surf around the perimeter. So, these were fun. These were fun. And then, of course, we're going to add splatter. So, another way to add some texture and also cover up any oopsies and distract the eye. So, I used my Zig, the Kuretake Gansai Tambi Starry Colors palette. I had already added water to this one little well, as you can see. I have used these very heavily over the years. Love this little palette. And added the water, I let it sit for a bit, and then I mixed it up really well with my little fan brush, and then generously splattered these with that gold splatter. And love. Black would have looked really nice on these 2. Trust me, I thought about it, but I kept it to just the gold this time. This is me being like restrained. This is basically clean and simple. So anyway, splattered that all over these, set them aside. While the splatter's drying, I die cut a ton, really. I die cut all of my sentiments and all the layers for the sentiments while the splatter was drying. And then I also decided how I was going to do my card bases, because my original plan was to just pop these onto white card bases, but I ended up changing that in a minute. So I've got this is an oldie but goodie. I love this wafer die. This is the CZ Design, just Mary wafer die. And I die cut it from white cardstock. The top layer is Simon's matte gold cardstock. And then the outline I die cut from vellum. So I stacked one of the white layers and the gold layer together with liquid glue. And then I am going to adhere that to the vellum layer. And then that final white cardstock layer is going to get adhered to the back underneath everything, underneath the vellum. And I still don't remember who to give credit to. This was not my idea. I saw a maker do this just forever ago, and it was a game changer for me because I used to always trace the back of these die cuts, on the back of the vellum with my glue, trying to be very careful not to let the glue ooze out because glue shows through vellum. It's not pretty and it looks gross. And so especially like more detailed die cuts, it's kind of a pain. And then someone was just like, well, I just adhere a piece of cardstock, like a die cut to the back. And I was like, you're a genius. It's so much easier because then I can just put the glue on that cardstock and the vellum doesn't get touched. Plus it pops the vellum up just a smidge. And if you wanted the vellum popped up more, you could just die cut more layers and adhere them together. I would do that. If it was a thicker die cut, I would use you could use foam strips, things like that. But with delicate die cuts, I have to be in the right frame of mind to do foam tape or foam dimension behind like really finicky die cuts. I love when other makers do it. It looks amazing and it looks like it's floating. And I'm just like, nope. Anyway, but I'll do like ridiculous things. So I don't even know what is wrong with me. Anyway, my card bases. Instead of white cardstock, I went with Audrey blue cardstock and dull pink cardstock for my card bases. And I had that stamp, that white Christmas text still in my MISTI, and I cleaned it off. And I'm stamping the Audrey blue card front. I stamped it with the surf ink. And then flipped the card over. So now I'm stamping on the inside without re-inking that stamp. So I'm just getting that second generation of ink on the inside as well, just to add that little extra something. It's going to be pretty subtle, especially when it fully dries, but it's still there. So because I'm doing different orientations of these cards and different colors of cardstock, this took a little bit. It wasn't crazy, but I had to clean off the grip mat and then repeat and then clean things off again, etc. Not a huge deal. But if I was doing a ton of these types of cards, I'd probably keep them all in the same orientation and most likely all the same color card base because it would just make everything faster. So did that on the second card, removed that, wiped everything down. I ended up missing a spot on my grip mat of the surf ink, and it gets picked up on this dull pink card, but that's where the little sand eraser comes in handy, and I just erase it and we're good. So with those ones, I'm using the Sweets ink. Same thing. Inked up the stamp, stamped it onto the card front, flipped the card over right there. That's where I got the little oopsie. Sanded that off, stamped the background without re-inking it, and then did the same thing on the other card base. And then for my sentiments for the insides of the cards, another oldie but goodie favorite. This is the Don't Flurry Be Happy set. This came out years ago. This was in one of their card kits, I think. Everything is still available. I'm not 100% certain of the stock of any of the things at the moment, but they are still available. Anyway, I stamped the first part of the sentiment from that set onto the insides of the cards with the same inks. So surf ink and then Sweets ink, and inked them up and stamped them more than once. And this is also when I really noticed that I was I need to re-ink these ink pads. I use these colors a lot. So stamped them onto the insides with the surf ink, and then I'm going to repeat the process with the Sweets ink. And yeah, did that one. And I always use anything pink, especially intense shades of pinks, reds, etc. like this. You notice I always do these last because it's just easier. Because it's harder to get this ink off, and especially when I'm in a hurry. If you don't clean these types of inks off, these colors of inks off well enough, other colors will pick that up. So I always without even thinking, I have a habit now of anything, if it's got pink, and if I'm doing multiples and there's a pink involved or a red involved, I do those last because those colors just like to migrate everywhere. So I'd done that. And on the backs, I had trimmed down all those card fronts. I knocked off, about a 1/4 inch off each side. And that's also why I stamped the card bases, so that everything looks a little kind of seamless and fun. And then I popped those onto the card bases with Big Mama foam tape. So again, just builds a little bit of dimension. And then I can add the Merry sentiments by putting the glue just on the back of the cardstock die cut. And then to finish the sentiments off, I had trimmed out little sentiment strips from the CZ Design reverse typed Christmas sentiment strips. And then to make these look a little more seamless and finished, I just took a black marker, any black marker will work for these things, and covered the exposed white cardstock edge with the black marker. So it's just a subtle little thing, but it gives it that little extra. So once those were covered, I just put little thin foam strips on the back of them and popped them into place, just like so. Love it. I love these colors. I went through that little phase there of like very traditional Christmas colors. Love that too. But then, man, it's fun. And I especially love, there's something about like pink and purple and aqua together that, yes, love. So my final little bit of embellishment, I used these in a recent video too, are these little gold, they're clear rhinestones with gold glitter embedded into them. I love these. I love them so much. So arrange those onto my cards and then just pick them up with my little embellishment wand and then press them into little dabs of glue. And then I just got to let the glue dry and these cards are going to be complete. So you've got just layers upon layers of texture without layers upon layers of actual cardstock, die cuts, etc. And shine from that gold cardstock, love, and a bit of splatter. And the shine from the heat embossed background as well. And then that, pierced the Snowflake Burst pinpoint plate. I love that thing. I'm glad I came across it when I was looking for something else in my stash not too long ago. And I was like, oh yeah, I've got that. And so, yeah, don't be surprised if you see it in many other, upcoming videos, because I do love that. So those were my cards. Everything I used will be listed and linked in the description box below the video. Thank you all so very much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps a ton, and I very much appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!